Anybody else see for me?
I guess.
Fine, then I will forget this. I'm going this way. Apologies for a delayed start. The meeting is called to order at 6:40. Regular agenda items tonight. We're going to take them out of order on the agenda. They're listed as Donna Scott Morash and then Maine Legacy Homes. We're going to do Maine Legacy Homes first. And you're Mr. Morassic?
Yes.
So what we're doing this evening is looking at your application for completeness. And so it's a preliminary review of the application to make sure all pieces of it are there. And then at likely our next meeting, we would hold a public hearing and have discussion on the application. But we usually like to start with a brief summary from the applicant of what you're proposing to do. So if you'd like to come up to the podium and do that for us, it would be very helpful.
So last fall we bought the Grange Hall, called Church Road, and we've since converted it into 2 apartments, and we have tenants there now. We've upgraded the septic system, and we're trying to get a third 1-bedroom apartment for now. Everything should be in line, water, safety. So any questions you have, you should be able to answer.
So for planning board members, the reason this is coming to the planning board is that the addition of a third apartment makes this a multifamily dwelling unit. And under the provisions of the ordinance, that is an activity that has to come before the planning board for approval rather than just so tonight we're just looking at it for completeness. And the standards in the ordinance that apply are the general site review standards to the extent that they're relevant. And there are also a couple of standards in the performance standards on page 50 of the ordinance that pertains specifically to multifamily dwellings. It's not a lot, but those are the pieces that apply to this application.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Peter.
Can you hear me okay?
I can.
I just have a preliminary matter in the interest of disclosure. I don't think, my view is it does not affect my partiality, my ability to impartially look at this. But I just wanted you all to know that about 20 years ago, I represented Mr. Morazic in a matter, nothing to do with land use, has to do with a motorcycle. Mr. Morazic, do you have any objection to me hearing this matter?
No, sir.
Anyone else?
Other planning board members, any issues with that?
No. So, yeah.
Yeah. Now, so everyone's fine with that, Peter. Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Good memory.
I have a question for you. Could you tell us a little bit more about, you said you upgraded the septic system. Was that specifically to accommodate the third apartment?
It was we had to upgrade it to accommodate two apartments. So while we were there, we just made it big enough. We actually made it big enough to accommodate 3 2-bedroom apartments, but we're only doing, there's 2 2-bedrooms, and we're only adding 1 bedroom. So it's technically will be oversized for what we're trying to do. The town, the city water. Not that I know of. No, I talked with the Winthrop Water District, and they said it shouldn't be a problem. I assume so.
That's Church Road, and the individuals that are on it, because of the pollution that's caused by the gas leak years ago, they're able to handle this and more. Attended their board meeting, and Eric's been all over it since it's submitted.
parking.
Yes, yep.
And you have 6, remembering that, you have 6 parking spaces for,
Easily 6, yeah, which would be 2 parking spots for each. Could tell you.
previous owners.
Shortly.
Other questions on this arrest?
Nope, it's gonna stay just the way it is, and we're just adding a 3rd apartment in the upstairs. One building.
Yes.
I'd like it embellished on how you did this, historical features and everything. I think that's.
I mean, we left everything as close to what we can as it was, the outside and the inside. We put new windows in it and tried to keep all the trim and everything. So historically, it's essentially the same except for some partition walls. But yeah. What's that? Yeah, we kept the stage. Everything. You're welcome to come take a look at it at a time. Yeah.
Is there any reason, just thinking about the level of effort it takes to get an approval of this time?
Yeah.
Is there any reason to do more than 3 apartments? Is there a reason to get approval before than that from your perspective?
No, I don't.
Is it gonna cap out?
Yeah, I think that's the cap at it. We're using a quarter of it downstairs for our own personal stuff, which is like storage and floors. It does art, so she's storing some of her artwork there. But yeah, there's no. I don't think there's enough. It's a small lot, so I don't think there's enough room for extra parking for 4 apartments. So it would just be the 3 for now. Maybe someday a little shop or something. So,
Yeah, just thinking about cooking time if your vision is different.
yeah, good. Just housing.
Any other questions? The motion. Looking for a second.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor? John?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Okay. So we have found your application complete and, likely at the next meeting, we will hold the public hearing. Very often it's an opportunity for members of the public to ask questions or provide comments if there are any. Frequently, there is no one who is interested in providing comment, but the hearing is part of the process, and so we will advertise that, and following that, the board will discuss your application. There might be some more questions, and then likely make a decision.
Okay.
So you can talk with Chip about the timing on that, probably at our next meeting.
Okay.
Which will be 9th
Couple weeks.
of June.
That's election day.
Oh,
That's a heads
yeah,
up.
that's right. All right, we'll have to talk about
Yeah.
that. Yeah, okay. So, Chip will be in touch. You can talk with me. That's good.
Do you have a number?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
You guys don't have to say.
Oh, we're having so much fun. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Good luck.
We have Tom Clark and Justin Morgan representing the Moorashes after continued discussion about application for demolition of their current seasonal cottage and reconstruction of the new home on the line. As you will recall, last meeting on the 28th, I believe, of April, we opened the public hearing. We did a site visit, And there was some discussion about the application. Just to refresh everyone's memory, what we're talking about specifically in terms of the MMO is Article 3, Section 4B. That's the section that deals with non-conforming structures. We're talking about the demolition of the existing structure and reconstruction of the new ground home. The big issue that we have been talking about here is the standard that requires a determination about meeting setbacks to the greatest practical extent. So the land use ordinance requires that in this situation, it's a non-conforming structure, and if it is going to be reconstructed, there needs to be a finding that the location of the reconstructed building is going to meet all of the relevant setbacks to the greatest practical. So we did have conversation about that. There are a number of factors that are listed in the ordinance that we need to take into consideration. And in particular,
Could you just leave your John?
is that?
Yeah. Yes, you need to write the names.
It's John.
Yeah, John, could you mute, please? We're hearing a bit of crashing around. Could you mute?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, thanks. In looking at the greatest practical extent standard, one issue that came up that we looked at last time and had some discussion around was the fact that there is an existing electrical line on the property. And if that issue has been raised by the applicant as a potential impediment to moving new structure further away from the lake. So we did talk about that, and what we had asked for was information about the cost of potentially relocating that electrical line. I had anticipated that we would have it prior to this meeting, but my understanding is that you have information that you'll be presenting tonight instead. So I think that our time tonight, what I'm thinking about, and I'd like your input on this, but given that we don't have that information currently and didn't have an opportunity to review it prior to the meeting, the hearing is still open, and I think that we'll receive the information you have for us. We'll have some discussion around it. You also provided information about the phosphorus calculations. So if you could present that information, we can have some discussion around that. We can discuss issues that came up previously as well, to the extent that board members would like to have conversations or have questions for you about that. But I don't intend for us tonight to be voting on the application. I'm looking at this as an opportunity to take in the information, for us to talk about it, to ask questions, but I really would like to give board members opportunity to have that discussion and sufficient time to think about these issues as a package, and at a future date, probably the next meeting, when we figure out when that's going to be, when we would do our deliberations and move forward with the decision. So I think probably the best way to start would be if you would like to, I don't know who's going to be presenting the information, but if you want to come up to the podium and present whatever information you'd like to give to us concerning either phosphorus and or the electric line. That would be welcomed.
And we'll both account for sending some stuff. Sadie that's on this call did a lot of work on this. Yeah, I do apologize about the delay. Some of it, we're we're trying to get quotes from people during a pretty busy time of year. One of the things that we did for this meeting, just so it's, we're not looking at little iPads trying to zoom in on stuff. Some of the materials that's here, I don't know, I like to read a newspaper, and sometimes it's nice just to have a piece of paper that you can look at to get an idea of what was there. So the last page of that packet, you'll notice in red, we kind of summarized some of the estimates for the power line construction costs. I'm going to move that. And some of these are preliminary, but basically, looking at, $34,000 just to move that. The big question came up at the last meeting of what would be required for clearing on that, which was a good question. And you brought that question up. And so we kind of did some calculations of the path that this would have to take. Maybe you can fill the board in on them.
I was just like a summary, trying to highlight all the points to keep a quick overview as we kind of keep them back here. So the existing cleared, one of the items that came up last meeting was the allowable clearance on the site. Which the shoreline guys within the shoreline zoning says 10,000 square feet. It's currently at 10,489. In order to clear back to the road to allow for the power lines to be relocated, would be an additional 8,000 square footage cleared. So we're bumping that area cleared up to 18.
Yeah, and that's basically just to move the power line. That doesn't include clearing for a house site behind 100 feet. In essence, moving the power line and moving back 100 feet, that lot is almost going to entirely be clear. That's definitely part of the design objective is to not do that. What we're currently looking at is a small area. It's about 400 square feet, which is where the new septic would go, which is where the shed is. You can see it kind of in red, proposed leach field. The goal of this is really low impact development. Try not to tear the site up for a variety of reasons, including slope, proximity to the lake. There are wetlands too at the end of that road that's there. And really leave the site pretty much as is, and kind of natural, as much as we possibly can, but still gain the benefits, which is what the code is looking for, of new site development. Phosphorus reduction, stormwater, new leach field, things like that. I think are pretty critical objectives for this, and really in no way making this more non-conforming in any way. So the height of the house is the same. The number of bedrooms are the same. There's actually a slight reduction in the square footage of the house. So, there isn't any real gain in that regard. More issues, obviously, we get a new house that has better insulation, better windows, roof, whatever. But they are, giving up being 14 feet from the lake. So when you break these numbers down, moving power lines in itself almost doubles the amount of clearing on this site as is currently there. As soon as you move the house 100 feet, you're clearing the whole lot at that point. The other part of it is the new septic is a major plus. The moving it back is about a 300% increase in the amount of setback that's currently there. And the phosphorus reduction is a 5-fold reduction in phosphorus. These are pretty, there's a lot of benefits to what we're proposing. I hope the board, will see that. We do, when we look at the greatest extent practical test, that's what this whole project is really about. The size of the lot, it's a small triangular lot. The slope of the land, not increasing the height of the building, potential soil erosion, clearing a full site like this, even if you're mitigating it, it's still not the same as having mature forests that are filtering on a slope. Moving the septic from where it is currently back, putting in a new septic, you start looking at easements, bound, the fact that the current house is in the floodplain, moving it back out of that. There's a lot of reasons for doing what we're trying to do here. So, and really not increasing nonconformity in any way. The reality is what we're doing is making this lot far more compliant with today's codes than it is currently. That's really the objective of that. And then on the rest of this sheet, this board he put together, which we can leave with you guys also. There was a question about some of the square footage. I think we spelled that out. And again, on that larger page, although I do feel like it's
Describe existing proposed, total existing 1562. So we're just trying to summarize the numbers that way. There's been a lot of PDFs back to the ones.
Some kind of idea.
if you want. Bring it up.
They're not. I mean, they're only reviewing the data, so send them that if they want to see it.
Peter and John, we can leave this board here for you guys if you're at the town office to look at it also.
So what's on that board is not.
It's a summary of all.
It's a summary of all this. Yeah. And just so if there's a question from the board, we can kind of went through it. We can hand this around. So, and I know, Jack, you had spoken with Bill Montague regarding the phosphorus calculations. So some technical formula questions on that, but once it was redone to what he had, prescribed, basically we still ended up with that 5-fold, reduction in phosphorus with that, which I do feel like, is kind of an important, attribute to doing this. That's obviously one of the major pollutants for the lake, along with, septic and other things that are happening. So if we can reduce that, it's still, even though he doesn't always like the approach in his letter, but I think it was, I think it's still a good thing. There's no, I guess what I'm looking at is what's the negative of them doing this versus leaving the site as it is. I think, what they're proposing does help quite a bit.
What's the height of the existing?
Height of the existing building. Is it? Do you have that measurement?
Yeah, it's 2 floors, so maybe 20.
Yeah.
22 feet.
So 9. Okay, 9 and
So the bench group.
9. Yeah, I think it's like 23 feet.
So
Which, to be honest, is not optimum in new construction. So the second floor of the new building will actually have a reduced ceiling height in those spaces. So
wondering about height of structure, foundation, basement.
Yep.
Is that very height?
No, the foundation will be down in the ground. The current house, is up quite a few feet, especially on the front of the house. So what'll happen is the foundation will be in the ground itself, so it won't really affect that height. So it'll be the same height as the existing house, which I believe is 23 feet. And there's a drawing on your packet, there on A09, showing that height that's there. And that way there's an enforceable number for, the CEO to look at and say, yep, that's the right height. That's what the board approved. So we're not increasing the height at all.
So the basement would be 6 feet and 7
Yeah. Yep. The house will actually be, the height of that foundation will actually be a little lower than where the first floor is now on that house. So it'll be, a little bit lower.
and then 10,000 square. You have a site plan. I know it's looking for standard.
Shoreline zoning. Xavier, do you have the ordinance for the 10,000 square foot?
There's a code section highlighted.
SD, oh yeah, SD or S16.D.3-4. I can write it down or.
performance standards, it's on page 73. Um, actually, it's on 74. It starts on 73, but the piece that you're talking about is on 74. And it is clearing or removal of vegetation for activities other than timber rights. So it's D1, D2. And the thing that I noticed about that, Jack, it talked about except in areas, et cetera, except to allow for the development of permitted uses. And so it talks about that maximum amount of clearance, except for clearing for development of permitted uses. So it seems to suggest that the actual permitted use doesn't get folded into that.
My crude interpretation of it is they're trying to avoid people just coming in and clearing mass amounts of land that they don't need to. So the house is the permitted use, which is 2,000 square feet, which you have to clear for, but to eliminate, minimize the rest of it. Which I think, given the proximity to the lake and the environmentally sensitive zone, that makes sense to me.
So if the house were, let's just say, 100 people down, and you had to clear 1,000 square feet, 2,000 square feet. 2,000 square feet wouldn't count. It's like 10,000.
We're already at the 10,000 with what's already cleared on this lot. If we move the power line itself, not the house, just the power line, that would be another.
Obviously, power.
Was 8,000, another 8,500 square feet on top of what's already cleared.
The house square footage that the house takes up doesn't barely count against 10,000 square feet. It doesn't get use.
Well, it says, except to allow for the development of permitted uses. And it goes on to talk about a strip of land 100 feet from normal high water. And then it talks about, no cleared opening greater than 250 square feet. So there are several different things, but it all seems to be prefaced by this, except to allow for development of permitted uses. That's the piece that caught my eye when I was looking at this after you and I had spoken.
So, am I correct that you have a house 2,000 square feet, that's what property is for you, running. That's when you used to be what you count against the 10,000.
Well, the 10,000 is the 10,000 is on 76. It's D3. And it talks about that distance is greater than 100 feet. Right. The very end of it references, that's where the 10,000 is. So no event shall clear openings for any purpose, including but not limited to principal and accessory structures, driveways, lawns, sewage disposal exceeded in aggregate 25% of the lot area within the shoreline zone or 10,000 feet, whichever is greater, including land previously cleared. So this piece seems to set that 10,000 as the outside, as the maximum, and it can't go beyond that. But it does talk about principal and accessory structures, driveways, and those are all things that would be or could be permanent uses. So it's not crystal clear.
I think at the end of the day, the goal is to not clear any more than you have to, so,
I think that's definitely.
yeah, we did, Justin and I were talking, as we read that code, to try to reduce the clearing right now as this plan is an additional roughly 450 square feet of additional clearing in that one area where the septic would go. Personally, I think that trade-off is worth having a new septic system. However, we can look at trying to reconfigure that septic in a way that it doesn't require, we don't have to do any additional clearing.
The septic system as proposed is still clearing.
As it's proposed, there's about 450 square feet of clearing that would need to be done in that area. There's about 4 trees right there.
So
we could revise it.
Right, yeah, which wouldn't be a problem. But we could work, if the board wishes, we could try to reconfigure, there's Elgin systems, there's some other techniques that you could use for septic systems to try to reduce the size of the footprint of them and maybe, change the configuration to minimize, even that 400, which would keep it so the clearing as it currently is would stay almost identical to what's there currently. And again, that's certainly, Justin's a good engineer. He can figure it. And Xavier's on the line listening right now. So we could work on some ideas there and, see if that's something the board wants to work on. We're happy to do it. Or, if the 450 square feet's not a problem, that's going to,
And Jack, the other difference in these two pieces is the first one talks about the first 100 feet from all high water. And then that second piece, where the 10,000 is talking about distances greater than 100. So,
Just how I wrote that. 10,000 greater.
right. Yeah. So very
Is
odd, but they are different. So had you included somewhere in the information we have I thought I remember seeing the existing square footage that's been cleared, that's open.
yes.
That's in here. Right?
Yep. And just, you want me to show me on that? 'Cause
It's on this one. I don't think it was in the previous packet because it only came up on the site visit last week, the previous meeting. So I wanted to actually do that calculation. I don't think we had
we didn't have a sheet with that.
a survey down there with the tree line
Yeah.
up by the surveyor. So he did include that in the survey. But yeah, the calculations Xavier did after the last meeting.
Okay, so that's in here.
It is no, it will be on this,
It's
which I
on
just
here.
sent to Chip. So we can make sure it's included. But yeah,
Basically, right now, what's clear, we would, if the septic system stays where it's proposed, there'd be an additional 450 square feet. if we go to move power lines and things like that, we're looking at, almost 9,000 square feet of additional clearing on this site, which pretty much is the remainder of the site to be cleared. And that would allow the house to move back and then the power line to go around the back side of it. So it's a lot of clearing. So just,
I do have a question about the power line. In thinking about this, if they were to build this new house, as I understand it, it would be, the power line would be approximately 10 feet behind this new house.
from the back corner of the house.
And they're going to be able to construct this new home with the power line 10 feet behind it.
Yeah, you could call CNP the tilt line.
And they're going to leave the line there.
Right.
They will not move it.
Everything stays right the way it is. So
So they have no intention of moving that line after the house is built.
no.
I have another question about that possibility of moving the power line. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you.
In line 7 of the application, listing estimated value of the project, the estimated value is put at $926,100. Is that number corresponding to the cost, the projected cost of this project, or is it something else?
Is that the most recent application, or is that?
I think it is. Did that number change? I'm sorry.
I don't recall that number changed.
400 a square foot.
That's the number.
Is it still, yeah.
It's the number.
Yeah.
I assume your point is that it's about 3% of the cost.
No. Oh, that was my next question. Am I right about my math? So moving the power line, if you were required to move it, and I understand you don't wish to, if you were required to move it as a condition of some kind of regulatory approval, that would equal about maybe 3.5% of the total cost of the project. Is that right?
What I would say is that initial estimate is probably higher than where this would come in real life. I just built a 2,800 square foot house over in Lake George, and it's half of what that number is.
So why is this number in?
Maybe just a rough calculation. I don't know. So.
I mean, what's the countertop?
Excuse me?
What's the countertop? Is it granite, quartz, marble? What's the flooring? Yeah. Is it tile, vinyl, hardwood, oak?
We certainly don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know either. So we put a high number to the price tag to cover it, assuming that its cost is usually accounted for permit fees. So we're not trying to shortchange the town. So we throw a high number in there.
Well, regardless, you're at 3 to 5%. It's all 3 to 6%.
Yeah.
It's all 5%.
Yeah.
It's not 50%.
No, but it's still a considerable amount of money. You know what I mean? And there's probably some other costs that we don't know what they are. The other side of this is the amount of clearing that's required to move that power line. Is a pretty substantial percentage of this lot just to move that power line. So
the existing power line with the easement goes from 50 feet to 70 feet.
correct.
House is going to get 42 feet. Power lines and such like 50 feet goes to 70 feet.
No, I don't think that he's not.
That's not right. No, it's 42 feet back on the front of the house. And it'd be just back from that.
When we were on site, painted 50. 50 was at the back corner of existing construction. I said, we just picture the site right there. And we painted 50 just behind the existing corner.
Where goes the easement?
I mean, you should show right there, right? Versus 75.
AO6. So the back of the house is close to the 75-foot mark. And if you want, I can approach it and kind of show you right. There's the 42 feet on the front. House is 26, and the way it's angled puts it, 42 plus 26, basically.
Look at A06, John. Second page.
Again, one of the things that does, it does move it out of the floodplain.
So that easement is 20 feet across, is that correct?
10 feet on each side. And that's the required easement for the utility. So if it gets moved, it would have to have a clearing of 20 feet all the way around.
This one is different. The A06 sketch plan was. I'm just not looking for it.
I
Did you guys
think
revise it?
at the last meeting, one of the issues was that the packet was becoming a cumulative packet, and there were some old plans in there, and then the newer ones that came in more recently are the ones that we're supposed to be looking at, but I think some of the old ones are still in there.
We
So
figured hand out
the entire proposed building is within the 75-foot setback. Is that correct? 100% of it.
Yes.
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 Which is not the case in this. So it's moved
Originally, that's
it's moved
correct.
closer
Yeah.
to the lake.
Yes. Yes.
That was a utility easement issue.
Got it.
In December, when we proposed it, we were actually into that easement a little bit.
Yeah.
And it was advised that we do not go into that easement.
Okay.
The septic was okay, but not the structure itself.
And that was a request from our company.
That was constant. So, if you can do this without going into that easement, it just saves you have to go, having to go back to the utility. Utilities don't want you they need to be able to get in there if there's a problem. So they like their easements and they don't want you in there. The septic wouldn't impact their accessibility to that power line.
Power line couldn't.
It's a private road currently, I believe. There's a question about ownership of who actually owns that road. So
Huey's,
what, I'm sorry.
the neighbor, the Huey's on the road.
Right.
They were willing to give him extra property there.
And the proposal initially was to run the power line on the road. Do I remember that correctly?
No.
Yeah. Not your most recent proposal, but in 2020.
So I don't know anything about that.
Well, I think that there was some, the road to some extent is going to be relocated, if I remember correctly. And as part of that relocation of the road, power line was going to be restrung.
Yeah, that was not my plan. I have no.
But it was a plan.
Right, but this is a much different approach to this whole. Again, we're really trying to do the minimum clearing and destruction on that site as possible.
Now, have you had someone look at that property in terms of, there were some questions that came up concerning health of that wooded area. I noticed a lot of blow down there. It didn't look very helpful to me. Has there been any survey of that?
We haven't had an arborist come in, but quite honestly, there's varying age of trees in that lot, in that area. And I would expect certain species will want to die out earlier, and depending on insects, et cetera, and the health of, that mature forest, things will come and go. But at the end of the day, it still serves the same function of, filtering upland water that's coming down through that area. And I think that's a key thing to try to maintain that, moving forward.
I didn't think they looked too healthy, but that's pretty cool.
It's a mature forest with a mix of, there's some younger stuff, there's older stuff. There's some softwoods, there's some hardwoods. It's kind of a mix of things in there. But at the end of the day, the root structures and all of that are intact there. And, again, part of the goal here is not to remove all of that, within, 130 feet of the lake on a 14-degree slope. And quite honestly,
I guess my opinion is there's a balance in that equation that you're presenting, because forests are not the premise of, I understand what you're saying,
right?
Water protection, but also the premise of not cutting anything for the sake of not cutting anything was also doesn't make sense, because it's necessary to thin out a forest and for its health and to keep it vibrant. So not touching anything should not be a goal of any property that has wooded lot. So I think that's just to point that out. I think there's a balance in that equation. I do understand what you're saying about water quality, but there's other things that can be done in order to protect water quality as well.
Yeah, and again, it's when we look at the greatest extent, considering slope and amount of clearing and things like that. It's not flat. The flip side is they keep the house they got. You know what? We don't get a new septic. We don't get anything. And I think when we come to trade-offs, there are trade-offs here. The septic is in its current location is a good example. There would be probably 4 or 5 trees that would be removed there. Is that a lot of trees? No. Are we going to replant trees elsewhere on the site? Yes. But we can try to rework that and maybe not remove those trees either if that's the board's wish. So these trade-offs, and again, it is a trade-off. They're keeping the house the same height, same number of bedrooms, reducing the square footage. These are the trade-offs that are happening with this plan. And again, not all of these are things that the Moreshes are real thrilled about. They would like big houses and whatever, but I think given the lot and just the restrictions on this lot, this isn't a lot to build a big McMansion on.
We determine that. So.
Yeah, and just try to keep to a minimum and not make the lot more non-conforming in any way whatsoever. I think that's a key goal here.
So the original application looks like a house. That this is what it said about it. And this new AO6 is close to 50 feet.
It's 42 feet. And that was because the easement, the structure can't be in the easement as we ran into.
There was an easement. I took it out of the easement. Now it flows with it.
But that's your opinion. It's not at all.
That's utility code. I mean, they don't want structures in their easement.
Okay.
That's why it's an easement, I guess.
I mean, there are examples of structures.
I mean, at 10 feet, you're getting close, at 10 feet. So
The house goes from 42 feet to
42 plus 26, the 88 would be the back of it. Or I'm sorry, 68, yes.
Looks like it's right on 75 long.
So 68 feet to the back. 75 foot.
So the very back end of the house is 68 feet from the line water, is that
Yep.
correct?
Yes.
How far it's, is it green dotted line, easement,
Yes.
black dotted line, easement, power line?
Yep. And again, if this was Scott's utility to his house, it wouldn't be that hard to move it. The fact that it's a feeder for that shoreline area, it's a major piece of utility right there.
So you're arguing, I mean, overall, your position is not argument. Your position, no. Your position is that can't move the house any further back to the greatest practical extent. You're saying you can't do that because of two reasons.
No.
One reason is you're saying one reason is power line, essentially, right? And two is you don't want to clear more land. Those are the two primary arguments that you're making on behalf of the applicant, that the house cannot be further back than it's proposed. Is that right?
And also, because it specifically says in greatest extent practical easements, I mean, it's listed there, so there are easements that create problems. The amount of clearing, the slopes. So we're talking 14-degree slopes here. There was concerns about driving down that road because it's so steep. Now we're talking about clearing within 150 feet of the lake. Oh yeah, I mean the construction would be there's a
flat slope going here.
yeah. So when you look at greatest extent practical, I think that's kind of where what type of vegetation, how much is removed, the condition of the building's foundation, location of existing easements, location of septic
And
system.
those are all the factors that
Yeah.
are in the ordinance, and we're well aware of.
Yeah, and so I
it's
think
our
this-
job to determine how those
Oh,
factors.
of course, yeah.
Fit into this project and whether or not we think those factors present any impediments to moving further from the lake.
Yeah.
So we're well aware of what those are.
Yeah.
And
I'm just answering
it's our,
this question. That's all.
well, you haven't answered it yet, so maybe you could. I mean, he was asking if those were the reasons that you were suggesting
Those are-
you couldn't move that.
Two reasons, but there's other ones here that also apply to this plan. When you read all of those and you look at the plan, this plan was designed around that paragraph to make it as fitting to this as possible. Because this is a good code. I mean, it's there and it works. The other part is on section 2 of that, increase in nonconformity. Part of the design of this was not to increase nonconformity in any way whatsoever. So at the end of the day, this lot, all the Mauritius are doing is basically making this more compliant than it is today.
Yeah,
And they're not gaining bedrooms, they're not
gaining
gaining.
that too.
Yeah,
There
and that's
are
an
certain
important-
aspects of this.
Yeah.
I mean, you're out of the floodplain, and we understand all that.
Yeah, and I hope the board, understands.
I can see the pluses. I can see the pluses that you're suggesting. I'm just trying to understand the primary reasons for why you think that most practical extent can't be accomplished, and I'm identifying those issues that I mentioned to you as the primary reasons. I know there's a lot of other smaller issues, but those are not material compared
Yeah.
to the two primary issues.
For me personally, when I was asked to kind of look at this, on behalf of the Moorashes, hey, John, what should we do here? Low impact development is a key thing in watershed areas, period. And if you can reduce the impact on the site and keep it as it is just good development, period. Then we get to the nitty gritty of the code and all of that. To be honest, the house that they currently have isn't very tall by new standards. Yeah, it'd be nice if the house is taller. Yeah, it'd be nice if there was a 8-foot basement. There'd be a lot of things that would be nice. And these are where these compromises, are coming in. And again, part of why I think it's worth coming to a planning board is that, hey, board, what do you guys think? I mean, they could stay right where they are, 14 feet from the water. They could fix it up, put some new carpets, some new kitchen cabinets in it, give it a coat of paint. And, they've been living there since 1999. They've been using it, on a year-round basis, all those years. It's just getting to a point where they either need to invest in what's there currently, or, hey, let's look at some other options here. If the board doesn't like this, it's not the end of the world. They still have a house that they can go and enjoy their summer.
So. Get to the, these are on the other side is 80. So we put a house at 88 feet. It's 20 feet long, 26 feet.
Yeah.
Go to 114. Go from 88 to
You open up your bedroom window, there's a power line right in front of you. And
how long is going to be?
on the back side of that. Yeah. And if we did do that, there would be another 8,000 square feet of clearing. That's it. And that basically is the rest of the. I'm sorry?
1,000?
Yes.
8,000 more square feet.
Because of the power line. The power line
is the power line. You said you have to leave the power line where it is. You said you put the house on the back side of the power line.
Okay, so you're gonna look out to the beautiful lake and look at a power line right in front of your house.
That's his choice.
It is his choice, and I guess I would say, why give up 14 feet to look at a power line? You know what I mean? Let's be that's practical. I mean, we're all human. I don't think that's something we want to
move the house 80 feet
and look at a power line.
Well, power line's at 42 feet. You're going to look at it through the back windows of the house.
Power line's very unfortunate.
This would be a much different discussion if that power line wasn't there. And this is what creates kind of an unusual lot. The flip side is when we do go to the other side of that power line, it gets a lot steeper. It's not a cleared flat area.
It's not very steep. Well, first 15 feet or so, 20 feet is perfectly flat, and then the next 10 feet slightly inclined. And then you'll be taking down some steep trees and we everyone knows requires vegetation of the area.
If that's how you feel, I mean, the Morishes will probably just stay where they are. If that, is that the case? So why go to the trouble of doing this to look at a power line? You know what I mean? It's, the point of it is to move it back to the greatest extent practical. And when you look at the criteria for that, I think this project meets that pretty well versus just staying where they are. And again, these are the choices, that, it's not like this is a vacant lot and they can't live there. They've enjoyed it since 1999. They're at a crossroads right now. Do they invest in what is currently there? Or do we go to this process to say, hey, what else can be done? Or is there a better plan here? Or increase?
I certainly hope that you understand that a lot of what the planning board does is with the health of the lakes in mind. And one of our charges is to minimize activity near the water and to ensure that lakes in the general sense are not impacted by development and by activity. And these standards in large part are in place for that specific purpose. Activity near the lake has the potential for negatively impacting. And so that's a large part of what we look at. And a big reason why many of the standards in importance. So it's, it's not for no reason. It's for that reason.
I've been on planning boards for 10 years. I'm now on a zoning board of appeals. I live on Lake George, which is the cleanest lake in America. So we have a lot of code. So I understand that. And, that's why this low impact development is so critical, I think, with especially the small sites. The less disturbance we do on this site, the better off we are. Yeah, can you can you put hay bales and can you do different things? Sure you can. But once all those trees are cleared, we replant trees around whatever. It doesn't serve the same function as that mature forest that's back in there. And it's by no means all disease trees. I mean, it's a mature forest that's serving a pretty critical function right now. And again, we're looking at a 300% increase in the setback. We're looking at a 500% decrease in phosphorus. I mean, fivefold. There's a lot of good things.
There are certain improvements given the project. And we acknowledge. I think maybe we should summarize where we are with this and what we've talked about. So we've had more conversation, obviously, about the power line and the applicant's position that it poses an impediment to locating further back from the lake. The wooded area has been brought up. The importance of keeping it intact from the applicant's perspective in order to protect the lake. Jack suggested looking at repositioning the house behind the power line instead of in front. We do have phosphorus information. I don't think we want to go over that in any detail here tonight. I would say that Bill Monville has been clear that he's happy to look at this in more detail, but he needs to know where the house is going to be before he can provide specific recommendations on drainage and vegetation and so forth. So that's a piece that potentially we'll come back to, and Bill can provide more guidance and purpose there. I think that we probably, I'm assuming that we have all of the information we have to give to us at this point. We have the phosphorus. We've talked about the electric line. We have the rest of the information in the application. We have the information on the board concerning open areas and square footages, as I understand. So that's helpful thinking about. Board members, is there anything else? Are there other questions or other pieces of information?
We've had this discussion about an existing wooded area is worth serving as is, as opposed to if we took down some of the common habits. Thinking of that. And that's it's those trees that tend to be those stone wall. So there's some that are disease trees that should take advantage of. This is an opportunity to be planted revegetation. Back to the better job than these trees. So I don't know what looking at.
And which cost? You have a town arborist that can help sell, or
No, it's just conversation right now.
I was thinking about in terms of going back to what we were saying, like on the power line. We talked about what about going underground through just to clear the house.
The power company said you don't want to quote. You don't want to do that. It's 3 to 4 times more expensive to do. So now we're up to $120,000 maybe.
That's even, you know,
I didn't realize it was that much more expensive, but
what is it?
I think it's because it's not like what goes to your house. This is a major feeder line. So it's not, it's not like your house power. If this was that, it'd be easy. We could just you would do that automatically. But putting a feeder line underground, I guess it's far more, it has to be encased, it has to have certain, cement in it. It's
So
quite,
this serves 2 other houses beyond the Morashes?
well, I believe so. Yeah. Again, if the power line wasn't there, this would be a different discussion. If there wasn't already a house 14 feet from the water, this would be a different discussion. We're trying to kind of find that, how do you get the best bang for the buck for everybody? Where's that fine line in the middle of this? And again, more houses can stay where they are. I mean, it's, the house needs some work, but it's still, when they get done with it, it's still going to be in a floodplain. Your code tries to encourage development outside of that, so.
So it's your position that the Morashes would choose to stay in the old house rather than relocate on the other side of the power line. Is that correct?
I can't totally speak for them, but in the discussions I've had, there is the option to stay away, which has advantages. There are advantages to that. I encourage them to say, listen, let's, invest some money to come up with some plans and see, what the board's thought is on this, because there are so many benefits to it. And, does it meet this greatest extent practical? There are a lot of benefits to this. I personally think the benefits outweigh keeping it where it is. At the same time, it's an opportunity to, if they do fix up what's there, it's a 50-year thing. They fix it up and it's there for a long time. So I think, hey, we're in this juncture. Let's take a look at this and figure out.
You do. We talked about this before, but I want to make sure that it's understood that if for whatever reason they were to choose to stay in the existing house, and I don't know what they would do to it, but if the improvements that they make are considerable, that also triggers the need to go through this greatest practical extent.
Right.
So
Chip and I have talked about that.
You remember that.
Yeah, and I think, that's, you fix it up and you put a new roof on it, you paint it, you put some new windows in it. The biggest problem that house has is there's not a lot of insulation. So that's part of the issue. So, it's not an easy thing to fix. Like a deck, you can do that in a week, but insulation's a little trickier for structures. That's probably one of the biggest things. And again, in moving it back, investing this money, they still have 3 bedrooms. They still have, a 26-foot high house. They still have the same amount of square footage. They're not gaining, Taj Mahal here, 3-car garage, or, something like that. But I think this is really, this is kind of where that compromise comes in. And I think at the end of the day, what is practical? Is another 8,000 square feet of clearing practical? I don't think it is. I might even challenge that it violates the code. So you know what I mean? Like, and to do that within, this 100-foot, environmental zone, is tricky. We did reach out to Bill. He's very respectful of the board's position and not wanting to design projects until.
That's
Yeah.
not his job.
That's not his job, and I respect that.
Provides support to the board.
Yes.
On such things as phosphorus control, drainage plans.
And obviously, he's a very smart guy. We're open to whatever suggestions. I mean, the board could condition it on Bill developing a plan.
Yes, absolutely.
And then we could bring that plan back. And again, I always view planning board, it's a planning part of the board is a verb. Like, let's figure it out. What's the best thing for everybody?
So I think what we're going to do is to take away the information, the discussion that we had, and give everyone an opportunity to consider all of this information, the discussion we've had, the options that we've put on the table. And I would ask board members, again, if there are any other issues you want to raise, any other questions for Mr. Carr, Mr. Morgan. And if not, I think that we will schedule this for a subsequent meeting or further deliberation, but I want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to consider everything that we've talked about. And to look at some of these pieces in the ordinance that we've been referencing to make sure that we're all clear on what the standard actually is. The one example certainly is the clearance standard, because it is difficult language to plow through. Henry.
My request is that just for completeness from my perspective, this discussion has been going on a long time, long before you were involved, right? And it's evolved over time, and I appreciate what I'm trying to accomplish. However, I just want to make sure you thoroughly consider all the different, what you're presenting here and what we've discussed tonight. This is your complete plan. In other words, if there's something else you haven't considered, or if there's something else that you're for example, the last time there was a whole discussion about the road and all this, that component. So
That was not me.
I understand that, but none of that's on the table. I just want to make it very clear that this is your plan. This is the best solution that you're offering in this case.
In my 30 years of experience building stuff on lakes, I think it's a good plan. I think it's worth my time to come here and talk to you guys since December and work with Justin and stuff. I think this is the best plan. And I think it's better than leaving the existing house. I think it's better than, all of that. I also will tell you there's one thing that I really, really hate is when I start building a project and all of a sudden, and this is why I don't do custom homes, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner show up and say, we're going to change all this. Oh, Chip probably knows, and you know what? They've looked at this, they vetted it. This is what it is. Okay. There isn't going to be changes. The only thing I can say is if we start digging and there's ledge or something, but you know what? Before I come back to you guys, nothing against you, but it might be easier for me to make the basement 3 feet deep and keep the ledge, that kind of stuff. I really don't want to come back with modifications.
But you feel like you've creatively discussed with the applicant and also your own experience with all the possibilities.
Yes.
And just sure
the only thing, and the board's input is definitely welcome. That leach field, we talked about it, this last round. We can reduce the size of that and change it. And there's certainly systems that, like Elgin's, that can be, require a much smaller footprint. We can put things under driveways. There's other ways to reduce that.
I don't think that is going to be the thing that makes it race is the plan.
Okay. But if the board wanted that, things with Bill, like, I wanted to get his feedback, but I understand his position. He doesn't want to, do all this work and then maybe we do something different. But I think if to condition that with the approval and then to even come back to the board with what he suggests.
Yeah, well, we'll figure out how to work with Bill.
Okay. He seemed like a good guy when I had a chance to talk to him on site.
Board members, any other issues? Peter or John?
I don't have any other questions tonight.
Okay.
No, I don't either.
As we go through this process, if you guys do have questions as you read through the material, Justin's right down the street here. I'm easy to call. Please give us a call. Anything we can provide, or if something comes up at the last minute, it'd be nice to know, what we have. That would be we can provide them.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you for bringing the information, we appreciate it.
And for Peter and John, we'll leave that here with you guys if you want, or.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
That'd be helpful.
Yeah. Just kind of a summary sheet of, some of the things that are going on there. So, John, Peter, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully it's
You're
good
welcome.
television. So.
Okay, thank you
all
both
right.
very much.
Thank you, guys.
And Chip will be in touch about
Yeah.
the next meeting. We're probably gonna have to reschedule one that we typically hold first in June because it's voting. And
We'll work with whatever's
we'll
scheduled.
be talking about that and.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you very much. So I had sent out to everyone the final draft of the bylaws, which I realized I hadn't sent to you before. We had agreed on some changes, and we had voted to send the draft that we had created to the select board for their review. Select board received them, they had no comments. So what I wanted to do tonight was to take a vote by board members on whether or not to adopt those bylaws. So that's what's on the table currently. And I had sent you the draft that incorporated, there were some last minute changes that I think are meeting in February. That draft I sent you over the weekend incorporated. So that should be everything. And if you're so inclined, I would take a motion on bylaws. Unless there's any discussion on that about.
I hate to discuss it further, but I did have a couple thoughts. I'm not sure if it's worth changing anything. Section 3A, second line, saying that we're appointed by the municipal officers. That's correct, but in light of the town attorney's interpretation of the town manager system, I think what we really mean is that we're appointed by the select board. I thought there should be no ambiguity about that. Because as I understood what we were being told in a different context, that power in theory could be delegated by the select board to the town manager. And I've always thought that planning board members are appointed by the select board. But maybe I'm wrong.
Well, the planning board is appointed by the select board, and the only reason in the other context, that the appointment was made by the town manager was that it was delegated by the municipal officers to the town.
Oh, right, I understand that, but again, the town attorney's position is that under the system we've adopted, the select board can delegate any such activities to the town manager. I just thought that traditionally we're appointed by the select board, and maybe that's not important as opposed to being appointed by the town manager.
I know I was appointed by the select board.
Everyone was appointed by this. Does anyone have objection to saying specifically here shall be appointed by the select?
No, it's consistent with part C as well. To Peter's point. In C, it says
Yes.
by the select,
Yes.
so therefore appointed.
All right, I'm going to suggest then that we will just change municipal officers to select.
One other little thought in section 3B, the end of it, I would take out due to conflict of interest, because there may be other, I hate to think, but there may be other circumstances where people could be disqualified for reasons other than a conflict of interest. Such as, hypothetically, If a board member pronounced that, oh, I hate people with blue eyes, they don't have a conflict of interest, but they should be disqualified from voting on it for lack of partiality. A conflict of interest can involve partiality, but doesn't have to. It's a different thing.
So you're suggesting we simply remove due to conflict of interest?
Yes, I suggest that.
Anyone have an issue with removing due to conflict of interest? So it would simply read, or is disqualified from voting on a particular matter.
I'm okay with that because further down it does talk about reference. So I think it's fine. I agree with Peter. I mean, in this opening bit, it's really broad.
Anybody else?
Thanks. Those are my only thoughts.
That's it. Okay. Thanks, Peter. We adopt. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Peter?
Excuse me?
Aye.
Aye for me.
Okay, 2 ayes. Okay. One other administrative item. I had a conversation with Eric a week or two ago, and in trying to figure out new schedules and so forth in the town office moving forward, he was suggesting that the planning board consider a shift from Tuesday nights to Wednesday nights, which would better accommodate town office schedules. And I had told him I would raise that with the planning board. I wasn't aware of any standing commitment, but I put it out on the table to see if that would work for everybody.
It does plan.
Yeah. We used to meet on Wednesday, and for whatever reason, we shifted to Tuesdays. It was a schedule. Are you
Paula,
okay with that? Yes.
what was the reason again?
Well, I think the specific reason is that Angelica's schedule in the town office is better accommodated if we do this on Wednesday, because you're going to be in the town office late on Wednesday.
So with the code enforcement change, yes, we're planning to change those hours, but also even right now, I think it's probably, I would say, really difficult for Chip to work in Wayne all day and then come here for Readfield planning board meetings. So I'm trying to do it on a day after Chip is doing, so he doesn't have to deal with moving things around, but to move those to Wednesdays, and then we would have code enforcement here the same hours as the front desk, which we don't currently do. And then instead of, now that I'm going home for an hour and a half, we would just get done at 6, roll up here by 6:30, and we'd be in Readfield all day, so we'd be on a Readfield mindset. Just think it would be a little bit easier. It all came up when we were trying to figure out the schedule. Yeah, just a suggestion.
It's all about you.
It is, yes, typically.
I just got moved.
Yeah, Mel's like, we put it in my mouth. So yes, it was my suggestion.
So John and Peter, you're okay with that change?
I'm okay. I can arrange my adult education around that. It's fine. Just for your information, though, June 10th, I'm not available.
This shift won't happen until after July 1.
Okay.
So I'm gonna start this next meeting for Wednesday,
No,
into a Tuesday.
no, we're July. We'll start in July, not before then.
Paula,
Yes.
I'd like to apologize for the racket that you guys heard.
What were you doing?
I think I've done that before. Sorry about that.
Okay, I'll let or actually you can let Eric know that we talked about it. It's okay. Yeah, we do need to figure out what to do about the next meeting since the night.
What else aside from our action?
Yeah, we're gonna have to do the public hearing for Brass, and you also have the from Torsi to back in. Help me out.
Lawrence.
No, not, no, top of the road.
Say,
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 yeah.
Here.
Say,
Yeah.
do they actually have an application?
They have an application, they have a professional drawing, engineer drawing.
Well, that's the one we heard before. A couple months ago.
Yeah, it's quite a while ago when it was not
Can't remember.
together.
What was it for? Can't even remember.
There's a little
Place.
shack on the water and they wanna do something, but it's unclear what. Well, we could pick a different night and do a meeting that week.
Can I just make a point about the Wednesday thing? It's fine with me, but the only person not here is Dana.
Well, actually, I've got some news about Dana,
Oh.
so you don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
Dana contacted me and he's taken a new job and he thought that he would miss a few meetings over the course of the summer. But what he told me this weekend was that it appears that he's going to be traveling a lot more than he anticipated for the rest of the year. And so he is not, for that reason, going to see Readfield.
Still got it.
Maybe he'll consider joining us again.
So, yeah, he's away today and it sounded like that's pretty consistent.
Yeah.
Months to come.
Okay.
So a meeting, we could either schedule for a different night that same week of the 9th, or we could just double up and have a single meeting in June on the, whatever the date is, say the 23rd. So, I don't know. John and Peter, do you have a preference in that regard?
No.
I don't have a preference really, except that week of the 9th is difficult for me. In theory, I'd be available on Thursday night or Friday night, but so the following week is fine.
What
week
we have
after.
later? What's on the? Is there anything known beyond applications? Yeah.
Well, there's, well, just what we just mentioned
That's-
is my understanding, and that, place on Torsi would just be a complete investigation. The public hearing on the apartment, I expect it's gonna be pretty simple. And then there's more.
What about the week in between, so the week after the 9th, but before the 23rd, so just another little complication. Well, both Mel and I don't really into it, but we won't be here the 23rd,
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
The 16th.
Does the 16th work for anybody? It's a Tuesday. Yeah.
What is 16? Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, June 16th.
That June.
Still not, yeah.
So that's June.
You know,
That's illegal.
The Juneteenth. It's Friday. The 19th. Yeah, we know.
So we can't have a meeting.
You gotta have that.
So neither one. of them.
Right. Right. Well, we could, but it would be very problematic.
Oh,
Wouldn't be on
We
that.
set that all up, yeah.
So what's it look like for you, Henry?
I could do that.
Okay.
I could do the 16th or the 23rd.
But
I was just thinking about the next one then would be on the 14th of July. If we do
Is that gonna steal?
that. Well, this does do a
He's shaking.
I'm away, but I'm just thinking it. I'm coming.
So
16
16 works for everybody?
That works for you?
I think so.
You think so?
It works for me. It works for Mel. That's okay.
Yeah.
I can make it. But I
Okay, 16th it is.
16th.
16th.
Okay. And the only other thing we have is minutes from April 28th. Any edits, anyone? No, one meeting. 16. No edits?
Nope.
Good. Is there a motion? Looking for a second.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
One abstention.
Oh, wait a minute. I should have abstained too because I don't think I was there.
Actually, no, you were.
You were there. Or at least minutes indicate you were, unless that's an edit you want.
Too late.
I was there. I don't know where I am.
We love about you.
Okay, great. Thank you all. We're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
I don't think he was there.
Have a great evening.
Have a good night.
5.